Hey everybody, this is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home. Yes, I'm sweaty. That's called sweat. I was thinking as I was driving, hustling to get here because I was just coming from a job, how many general contractor builder YouTubers are actual builders? A lot of them have a big channel. I don't think they're building anymore. At least they're not on the field like I am. So I was on a skid steer all day yesterday and I was sweating today. It's like 100 degrees out there today. Anyway, I wanted to start off with just something to talk about. Maybe you can have some people in your prayers and in your thoughts. I had a conversation with a young family earlier this week, and I don't need to tell their names, but it's a story that we've heard over and over again. I get a call. There's a big hole in the home site where they're going to build a home. That hole has been there for over a year. So the general contractor started, dug a hole, and stopped. And that contractor was given, let's say, in excess of $100,000, and the bank approved it. And now they have nothing. They have nothing completed on the job. Hopefully, we were able to stop it in time before any more bleeding took place. But I see this over and over again, and banks are just not sophisticated enough, not even close. In my area, because I have a high build area, banks are really, really on top of it. But in a lot of areas where banks are not really aware of the building process, there's not much construction going on, they could be far less informed than you are. So they'll issue a check. Builder will just say, here's my draw, $150,000. That's to get this far. And all that's done is a hole that's dug. Anytime you give, and here's what's bad, when you give that kind of money to a contractor, let's say you come from roofing, when you suddenly have $150,000 and you got your general contractor's license and somebody gives you that kind of money, if you're not disciplined on partitioning out that money in the appropriate accounts, and you just put it into a general account, you're in trouble. And you start using that money for your own purposes, and then you become upside down. You go get a truck. I've seen it happen over and over again. They get a new truck, they go get a boat, and they think they can make up for it or whatever. They just subconsciously deny what they're actually doing is wrong, and it's called fraud. And I see it a lot. I've seen it a lot in my lifetime. And one of the reasons why I started this channel is to help people understand the process, take it back in their control, take it back into their domain. And the more they can do that, the better off they will be. Sorry, I'm parched. So if you have any thoughts on that, questions relative to those types of nightmares, if you've experienced that kind of a situation, how did you get through it? How do you work through it? We eventually had to face possible legal action. We had to notify the bank, let the bank know, and hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. If they're listening, maybe they can email me and give me an update on it. But the hope is that they can move to owner builder and tell the bank that this is what you allowed. You allowed a check to be issued to this person, a huge sum of money in advance, and you really should know better. You're the lender. You've been through this before. Now let me be an owner builder. And by the way, we have this program at howtobuildyourownhome.com, and it's all organized and structured to help people take that power back into themselves. It's called Transcendentalism. One of the first posts I ever gave on this channel talked about Transcendentalism by Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, all these philosophers in the early 1800s. They talked about, well, we don't need to buy that from Britain. We can do that ourselves. We don't need to buy that broom from the UK. We can manufacture that ourselves. So they took power to themselves. And that's called independence, or what they called at that time, self-reliance. Self-reliance really had its roots in the Transcendental movement that got more Americans to just think, hey, I can figure that out myself. And you can. And so that's why I'm here sweating, and I take my hat off, but I've got helmet hair underneath there. So I didn't want to do that. Let's start with some questions real quick. And if we can circle back maybe at the end and talk about these stories, and maybe you can have the couple from Detroit. If you can have them in your prayers this weekend, this next week, that would be great. Really sweet couple. So let's consider them. Let's take some questions. Camille, We are getting bids from subs, foundation guys, crawl space can start pretty soon, but the framers are further out, 4 to 5 weeks. How long is it okay for crawl space to be open to rain? How to avoid problems? You're going to be just fine. That concrete needs at least 30 days to cure. To be honest with you, you can start the frame sooner. However, a lot of concrete experts will say, I don't want any torquing. I don't want any compression. I don't want any supporting structure on there for a certain amount of time. So if you're going to have your foundation ready, it's going to sit for 4 to 5 weeks. That's just fine. Okay. Michael, pronounced Lebaginski. Lebaginski. Thank you. Lebaginski. All right. Building an ADU workshop. If you don't know what ADU means, it's accessory dwelling unit workshop with second floor apartment. Great. Monolithic slab. That's not so bad. Or footers and block knee wall. Just if it's just your ADU, I wouldn't mind a monolithic slab if your builder is familiar with it. If you don't know what a monolithic slab is, it means rather than pour the footings and then form and put the slab on top, you just form the whole thing at once and you pour the whole thing at once. Just keep in mind, I found that with monolithic slabs, they can tend to crack a little easier than a two pour. I like a two pour because I can get the rebar in and I can put the rebar up and I can bend it into that foundation and I get a real nice supporting structure because of that. So I've actually moved away from mono, and I've seen forms just go out a little bit. There's an incredible amount of weight, pressure, wet liquid concrete pushing against that concrete. You're increasing your risk of going out of square. That's why I like the two pour. So if they can do it in a two pour, I know it's a little more costly, but it's also safer. It's also easier to deal with. So see if that works out for you. Josh James, do you recommend starting digging footings before getting a permit with the city? Yes, it's not a problem. However, two caveats. If your soil is like sand, it's all going to slough in there, or if it's big aggregate rock and you dig your footings, it's going to, if a little rainstorm comes, it's going to wash in there and your footings are going to get wider. And what happens when your footings get wider? It's more concrete. So it can be costly. So if your soils are nice and clay and they're going to hold form, great. If not, that's something to think about. The other thing to think about is that some areas require a excavation permit. And so you might want to find out if they require that. And a lot of it's called dust or grooming or just a really heavy equipment permit for just starting that. Me, I'm breaking ground on a home in a week from now. I don't have a permit. So it's in a rural area. I know the area. We're just going to start grubbing and start getting it level, and then we'll get ready for everything else and have a permit right after that. So just weigh those pros and cons. Dan Lisi, the hard-working nice guy. Oh, I guess so. You're Dan Lisi. You're the hard-working nice guy, not me. I was reading that as if it was me, but I guess I'm a hardworking. I don't know if I'm a nice guy though. Do you have a spreadsheet that could use to list the different subcontractors with going out to listing their name, their phone number, their email, what they're bidding on their bid price? Inside the program at How to Build Your Own Home, the self-managed package, you go to the download section and it has something called specifications for bidding. And it goes down framing, electrical, plumbing, all that. I didn't get into the finished carpentry stuff and all that, but I got into the really big stuff. And it gives you a list of all the things that you need. And all the stuff that's in red, that's the stuff you need from them. Their email, their phone, their EIN number, that kind of stuff. It's all there. Just go to the download section at How to Build in the self-managed package, and you'll see it there. And you can literally, I think I got that in Word, so you can add to it if you want. You just cut and paste and send it to an email. I did that just a second ago, about an hour and a half ago. I got an email. A guy said, hey, we're blah, 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 electrician. We're moving down from up north. We're trying to set up an office, looking for work to bid. And I replied back. I go, great. Here's some plans. Go ahead and bid that on me. I'd love to see what your bid is. So yeah, it was great. I just cut and paste. It's all there. Alex R., I spoke to a paint contractor today. He told me he was going to be doing DoorDash because his business has dried up. It's different out there, folks. It's really different. A lot of material costs are down, especially lumber and labor costs, not across the board, but in a lot of sectors, it's down. Remodeling might be a little up, but new construction starts are slowing down, which means you can probably get a better bid. So rather than $3.25 a square foot with three-tone paint, you might be able to get $3.10 or even $2.80 a square foot. So now is a great time to build. For all those purposes. It may not necessarily be a good financial time, but all the other indicators say it's not a bad time to build. So a lot better than 3 years ago. Bradley James, before my construction loan, if I cash flow a few items directly from my excavation business, can I reimburse the loan once the first draw is approved? You sure can. If you're licensed and you got an EIN number, you issue an invoice to the bank, and the bank will pay that business that amount. I've done that several times. But on stuff that I build for my own, if you're not, I'm doing a home right now, and I was able to do the excavation, but in order to control the costs, I had several bids coming in $85,000, $90,000, $95,000. I go, no, I'm going to do it myself. And I use that as part of the loan. So you can talk to your bank and see if that's a possibility. There's a budget, okay? And they'll say, what's your 20% down? Well, this, and this, I got the land paid for, I got this, and I got that. And that's how you build a home, is you try to pick line items that you can kind of tackle: architectural fees, engineering fees, geotech fees, land costs, water fees, fire fees, water conservancy, on and on. All those fees, you just tackle them one at a time. And that becomes literally down payment for that home. Make sure you save your receipts and get a photocopy of the check. It actually makes it nice to do that too.
But he can get reimbursed.
Yes, he can get reimbursed. Yeah. Dupler question: would you recommend a conditioned crawl space? Is it overkill to pour a concrete floor in the crawl space instead of leaving it as dirt? Yeah, it's overkill. Unless that crawl space is like 5 feet or 6 feet. I've got the highest crawl space I've ever created, and it's 9 feet. You bet I'm going to be putting concrete in that. But if you're less than 3 feet, what I would do before they put the floor on is have a load or two of nice pea gravel come, level the ground first, get all the rocks and boulders out, level it nice, and put some pea gravel in. Now you can put a vapor barrier or some plastic bisqueen if you want in there. I'm not a fan of that. I want it to breathe. Unless I'm in Louisiana or unless I'm in a high water table area, then it's a different story. But for the most part, just a load of pea gravel, about 6 inches thick, and I level that out. And why is that nice? Because subcontractors, when they get underneath, they've only got 2 or 3 feet to deal with. They're doing wire, plumbing, all that kind of stuff. It's nice and comfortable to just lay back on the pea gravel. But if you got a big boulder right there, look, how many of you have looked under a crawl space, an old crawl space? Oh, it's dirty and all the boulders and stuff. That's because they didn't care. They didn't stop. Let's level it. Let's grade it. Let's get it looking nice before you put that floor on, and you'll be thankful you did. And before you do that, after you do that, go ahead and wash it off. Just wash it off with water. You'll get down. All the dust will go down into the ground, and you've got clean pea gravel up on top. Okay. Josh James, does the course help if I will be doing a lot of DIY? I know you suggest not doing a lot on your own, and I will be hiring some of it. Yeah, it's fine. The course actually helps you understand the construction process. Checklists up the wazoo, video. Construction. So it has everything in there. Subcontractor agreements, everything you need to really manage your course, okay? There's nothing like it even in the academic environment. I'll say no more, because they obfuscate things. They spend more time talking about building science rather than the building process. So let's take the next question. Josh James, is it okay to put in forms and rebar while waiting for the permit? Yeah, it's fine. I've seen that many, many times. If they allow you to do the dirt work before permit. Some of them may have an excavation permit or a dust permit. required before that, but it depends on how sophisticated your building department is. Don't ask them because they'll say no. But if you start it and they don't complain, and then your permit comes afterwards, they're not going to complain. They don't police that so much, okay? Unless you're downtown in a major city and an inspector drives by and say, I wonder if there's a permit there, and they go and check. There's no permit there, then they'll flag you. So, but I've never seen that, especially in rural areas. I'm mostly rural, so.
Keith, I want you to do this. Okay, for this one.
Okay. Just close on our land. Great.
Keep your thumbs up.
Keep your thumbs up. Foothills of Colorado. What things would you try to get done before spring when we will pull the construction loan? Get your water fees paid, all your utility pays, all that kind of stuff paid, and miscellaneous parks and recreation, all that fees paid. And I would actually get your permit paid this year, because permit fees tend to go up in the 1st of January. So if you can get all that done now, sometimes they even go up again in July. And so find out with the permitting office and ask them, do you sense your permit fees are going to go up? They can't tell you now, but they will be able to tell you in the middle of December, when the last planning commission and city council meeting meet. And if they have any increases in fees, they'll typically approve those when you're all busy with the holidays. So double check and have a good relationship with your building office. But get those things done and paid for as soon as you can, if you have the cash flow. And that's just down payment on the home. Save all your receipts. Yassine, is it better to do ICF in North Vermont on footing with regular framing for a small Nordic cabin, 900 square foot? No, it's not better. That's just, that's only 900 square feet. And you're going to have a harder time getting somebody out there to install that. Why am I saying that? Because think about a subcontractor. Most subcontractors want to come to a job site that is 2,000 square feet and above, or even at least 1,500 square feet and above. If it's an ICF job, they may not, let's say that they're 50 miles away. They're not going to want to come for that. And if they do come for that, they're going to have to charge an increased fee. And by then, you just might be able to get a local framer to frame the thing up in 2x6. So you have to look at the whole situation from a subcontractor point of view. And if you can, you're going to see the pros and cons of that. And right now, I see more con than pros with that. Paul Graham, I just bought a boatload of clear heart vertical grain redwood beams from a guy in Arcata. I know Arcata very well. Each beam is a work of art. Thought of you in the college days. Thank you, everyone. That's nice. Send me a picture of those beams. I went to school just right in Arcata. Caught a halibut fish right there in Arcata Bay. Big 30-pounder. My wife remembered that. We actually fried it up. That's when I asked her to marry me. Swan Lake builds in Lakeland, 30 miles east of Tampa. I received bid for $13,200 from Trust Company for 2,400 square foot block home. This good. Is it all on one level? I think it is. I need trust plans for structural engineers. So how much do I pay to start? Yeah, that's not a bad price. It could be a little on the higher end, but not so high it's ridiculous. But I need trust plans. The truss layout will go to your engineer, and your engineer will stamp the truss layout, saying that, yeah, this meets the structural integrity required based upon, you have a lot of hurricane issues in Florida, and they have a different hurricane strapping and all that kind of stuff with regard to your roof trusses. So yeah, once you get the layout, you ask them to send them to the engineer will approve them. Now, sometimes truss plants will be their own engineer, but most truss plants will rely upon the structural engineer for the home and not their own engineer in-house. So keep that in mind. Ryan Kowarski, if I'm doing slab on grade foundation, is it okay to have one contracting company do the footings and another pour the slab? Or should I have the same company do both? Have the same company do both. I don't know of any company that want to just do one and not the other. Think of it this way. A truck is going to come with a big trailer with all kinds of forms on it. Okay. they're not going to want to come and do what they can here and pack up and leave. They'd rather just leave it there, let it dry in the morning, use the materials that are there, form it up for the slab, and be ready to go. So I don't know of anyone who'd want to do just one. It's an economy of scale for that business. And as an economy of scale works for them, it's going to work for you. Otherwise, somebody's going to have to charge you more money. Okay. Alex R., I got back an appraisal last week on my land for $60K that I paid $15K for the last year, using that as my down payment with a credit union I'm working with to build my to fund my build. That's a great thing. Investing in land. I'm not a financial advisor, but land is typically one of the best things you can invest in because it increases in value.
If you do it smart.
If you do it smart, you know your market, you get a realtor involved, they give you comparable market analysis, you really know the area pretty well, it works for you. I have a client that bought a parcel 2 years ago for 115. Now it's worth 180. Go figure. And he used that as down for a home. So secure, and that's a great, rather than buy your plans and your permit fees and all that, just put it all taking on that land, because typically that land will go up in value. All right, typically, not always. Ryan Kowarski, one more for you. What are your thoughts on reinforced fiber cement for the slab? That's a really good question. I like it. It's a matter of whether or not your engineer is going to approve it. Here's the other thing I like. It doesn't rust. It's a little more flexible. It's just as strong, if not stronger. The only problem is it's hard to bend. And so they may have to take a torch to it and bend it, because it's basically a fiberglass material. And that's where rebar comes into play, because they just have all these machines out there where they can bend the heck out of it and put it in place. But for your grid pattern, it's not bad at all. However, if I did do fiberglass, I'd do the whole thing in fiberglass. I have issues with an EME and what is it called? A pulse, electromagnetic, a pulse, EMP, or any kind of CMA, coronal mass ejection from the sun, which has taken out wires and copper wires. We had one a couple of months, 9 hours earlier, and we would have fried circuit boards throughout the world. That's how powerful the sun is. Just look at it in history, and as a result, it wants to come down and it wants to find that metal in your building, and it does a number to your building. And also, I've heard that the grid pattern is not necessarily the best pattern for some electrical issues down the road. So yeah, I've been wanting to use it for a long time. I just haven't found a sub who wants to use it. So Josh James, I might add solar. Should I go with the electric radiant floor or an electric boiler, or stick with a gas boiler? I'm not a fan of radiant floor heat, because the minute you change that floor, or if you want to cut into the floor, or if you want to move a vent or move a bathroom, once you cut into the floor, you can literally destroy everything. My grandfather had radiant heat from the ceiling, and when they did some drywall patching and stuck some screws up in there, it shorted the whole thing, and the whole thing was toast. So imagine your heating system toast. All right. I just came from a job yesterday, and I went to my job, and my electrician showed me where a nail came through and hit his wire and shorted his wire out. So he had to cut out the drywall, fix the drywall, and patch it, all that kind of stuff. So you're running a risk with that radiant floor heating, whether it's in the ceiling or in the floor, whether it's liquid or electric. I'm a fan of either mini splits or forced air. Or if you're in a cold environment, you don't have air conditioning, then a nice oven or a nice wood burning stove would keep you warm all winter long. So I talk about problems I've run into, and there could be more pros that I'm not mentioning, but right now I'm just mentioning problems I've run into. So next question. KJ, we are planning on moving to Maine to buy land to build and using ICF for the foundation. Cool. Yeah. ICF is popular there. It's really popular in colder climates because there's literally a thermal break in ICF. And that polystyrene foam really repels transfer of cold and heat very, very well. That's why people are using it, especially in those cold climates where you've got some nor'easters that come off the Atlantic Ocean there and just pummel the entire area. And it goes inland pretty far. You're gonna feel it. Maine is so small, you're gonna feel just about everything coming off the ocean anyway. So it's gonna be a plus for you. Camille, do you recommend treating crawl space blocks to damp proof them or something similar? House will be brick faced. Depends on your environment, your soils. If you have a high water table, if you've got moisture coming up from the ground, then that might be something. We have an alkaline issue in our soil here that doesn't number on concrete. It also doesn't number on block walls. So you might want to ask around as if there's any alkalinity that can literally destroy concrete. All right. And you have to put vinegar on it, hopefully every quarter, just to keep it from destroying the concrete. So if you have an issue like that, then some sort of a covering down there as low as you possibly can would be beneficial. Yeah. So ask a geotech. Just give them a call. If you have their geotech online and you've already got your geotech report, give them a call and ask him. What is the correct way to connect a porch roof to a brick face house? With the framers frame the porch and then the brick around the rafters, or attached roof after brick? Oh no, this is a new build, so I'm assuming this is a new build, not a remodel. The brick comes on after, okay, because those rafters are going to come out, and that brick is going to come all the way to the top. And they'll probably cut the last brick right there before the rafters, and they'll actually come right to them. Or if you're planning on other kinds of soffit or other material, what they'll do is they'll hold the last run, then putting your soffit in, then put the brick, or put the brick all the way up and then put your soffit and fascia material. Piece of advice when doing this: if you can sheet the bottom of your eave, then that gives your soffit and fascia guy a lot more latitude to attach his J channel to the bottom of that roof system. But if all you have is a rafter system and they're 2 foot on center and you got your brick coming up, then the only means of support are those rafters coming out for your soffit guy, who's got to attach only to those areas. But if you got the whole thing sheeted with extra, and I found that most homes should do this, mainly because they've got enough wasted material. Look at all the waste of material it goes. It's typically about 12 inches to 18 inches in that range. That's the size of most eaves. And with all that material, you just staple it on there, and it gives more strength to the roof structure. It gives a little more strength to the rafters. It also gives a lot more stability and space or surface area for your soffit guy, whether it's aluminum or wood or even stucco. Now they got all that material up there to nail to. It's great. I don't do homes without doing that. I used to do it without them, and I got frustrated, and I don't do that anymore. So next question. Josh James, does the main sewer and water go under the footer and stem wall? Yes, it does. Both of them do. All right. But here's the thing. Most plumbers now will dig after the footing is poured. Now make sure they don't use a big bucket and it's 18 inches wide. They don't need to do that. You're going to weaken too much of that footing. I use a 9-inch bucket, and I just go in and dig on one side, come out the other side, and I make it as narrow as I possibly can. And I shove my water and sewer through there, and I'm good to go. Those are the only things that go underneath the footing. Nothing else goes under the footing, not even gas. Gas comes up the side of the house. They attach with a meter. Even if it's propane, there's a little register there, and then it goes into the home. Electric's the same way, and low voltage is the same way. Water and sewer all go underneath your footings. So just got to time it right. Now, I've seen people try to put a box out their drainage. They box it out, they put a little pipe in there, and then they pour their concrete. But here's a problem with that, okay? Here's the why plumbers typically go underneath the footing. You will never know the proper float elevation or drainage elevation until you have all the walls perfectly square. So when the footings are poured, okay, and they've got your bat boards, your concrete boards up ready for, say, a slab on grade or even a stem wall, those are now supposedly perfectly square. So a plumber comes in, takes the tape, measures from those lines, and it finds the exact spot for the sewer. And they'll go to the farthest sewer in the slab on grade first, because that's going to be the highest point, and then they're going to drop down all the way to that footing. If you try to put it in advance, then you're not starting from the farthest spot away in the sewer or the plumbing situation, and your grade could be way off. So that's why, especially in my neck of the woods, in a lot of places, especially with slab on grade and even stem wall is not the same. Just slab on grade, it has to be that way. With if it's a stem wall, you've got all this 2 to 3 feet of elevation change where the plumber can come in and do their thing. Then I box out underneath that footing for maybe a little 8-inch hole, and that goes into the dirt, maybe a foot out in the dirt, a foot. And then when I'm ready, I just slide in my sewer line, water line, whatever, right through that. And then I pop up, and then I can hit my elevation slope perfectly to that, because I have all that play. But with a slab on grade, you don't have play. And so that's why they typically, I've seen some sewers go almost 6 inches to 2 feet below the footing. But you won't know that until everything's squared up and ready to go. And then the plumber, I've got a video coming up. We're doing underground HVAC and all the plumbing, and we're going to have them there at the same time. I did a video like this a long time ago, but people don't remember it. They'll have a fresh one coming up. We'll be doing that here in a couple of weeks. So watch the channel and you'll see it. It's going to be pretty amazing. Sunshine. I've got a general contractor, a cement guy, and he always calls me Sunshine. I don't know. I show up on the job site. It could be 6 a.m. And his name's John. John, if you're listening, we're actually doing a slab together next week. And I show up on a job site. He calls me Sunshine. It's kind of cute. Anyway, how can we find masonry contractors that will do a wood burning brick fireplace, and the average cost of the also? Are you still considering setting up a Discord server? Yeah, we're still.
I kind of got it set up, but I got to train you on it.
Yeah.
It's set up. I just got it.
We're that close.
Brick fireplace.
We're that.
Yeah. How can we find masonry contractors?
Yeah, my recommendation is to not do a brick formed fireplace like that if you're going to use it a lot, because you're not going to actually utilize the heat sufficiently. Most open fireplaces like that, if you're in a cold environment and you hope to use it a lot, that heat just goes right up the flue. But if you can put it in a wood burning stove, that could either be or putting in a wood burning fireplace, which is an insert and is not a stove, but it has fans that blow and it puts that heat back into the home. So I'd look at some inserts, or I'd look at a wood burning stove. Now, here's the plus with a wood burning stove. That whole thing is cast iron. When that whole thing heats up, you've got all that radiant heat coming into the home. With the open pit fireplace, it's just brick and it doesn't radiate as much as a wood burning stove. So just think about that. And then when it comes to actually building a fireplace like that, you should find a mason that's experienced in that. You're going to want to make sure you put some hardy back behind there, which is kind of a cement board behind there, and then they put their brick on it. And you just have to look around. You have to ask around. And you can go to a fireplace company that installs fireplaces. And you can ask them, hey, do you have a mason who can do the masonry for that for me? I'd like to know. And it's really just asking around. I'm finding the art of masonry is kind of like gone the way of the dodo, mainly because most masons are just wall masons, or they're commercial masons. They're not structural masons. They're not artisans that have the ability to craft things like that. So just ask around and go to those places. Go do Home Builder Association. You can also go to a plant that makes bricks or pavers or anything like that and ask them if they have a list of masons that might be able to do what you need to be done. Okay. Next question. Swan Lake builds. I really want to have my ductwork in conditioned space. Air handler is in closet and envelope already. What do you think of plenum trusses? Should I worry if it will be hard to access them later? No, they're fine. They're just built so that you can actually take your plenum right through there. They're fine. I'll be doing another video where I actually designed the engineered floor trusses to handle the plenum. Well, at least the 6, 8-inch and the 12-inch flex that's going through there. But there are a couple places where we actually built the plenum and it worked out just fine. So yeah, it's not a problem. It's not that far. The plenum is not that much of a distance anyway, unless you're taking full rigid metal all the way. I don't know why you're doing that unless it's insulated. But then flex would be just as well insulated. That might be a little more costly to do, and it's also a little more difficult to install. So you might want to talk with your HVAC contractor about that and say, how hard do you want to make that on them? And if that's what they want to do and it's a good price, fine, let them do it. It's going to be a little more rigid and it's going to be sealed up probably a little better. It's just not fun to install. Okay. Ryan Kowarski, can my engineered hardwood do right on my slab, or do I need a subfloor first? I'll stop. You just glue it down. If it's a floating floor, that's one thing. But if it's a glue down floor, you can glue it down just fine. Now, take a big, huge 8-foot level, okay, and put that on the slab and see if there's any high spots or low spots. And you'll see them. And it will help you identify whether or not you need to actually put some self-leveling concrete in there. And do that. You never know. The bigger the slab, the more pronounced you're going to see those dips, okay? The smaller the slab, probably the least you're going to see a problem there. But the way you tell also is if it's a new build, just spray water on it. Just spray water on it and let it sit for a minute, let it dry, and then you're going to see where it's going to puddle. Then just go around on chalk line where those puddles are, let that dry, and then come in and do some self-leveling in those spots. That's one way you can do it as well. But yeah, don't worry about it. You don't need to put a subfloor on there. Go ahead and glue it down. Francis Wong, I'm redoing a concrete drive patio. There's no base and I'm removing a lot of dirt. It slopes down to the rear and one side of the property. Issues with finishing concrete or pavers that slope in 2 directions. One side of the property, issues with finishing concrete and pavers that slope. One thing you can do is if you have concrete and pavers that slope in 2 directions, is that you can probably create a swell. If I had a picture, I'd be a little more helpful in understanding that. But when I have a transition between pavers and concrete, I don't want the water to drain on the pavers. If I can get the water onto the solid surface, the better. But that may mean that I may need to have a swell built into the concrete as I'm pouring it. What that means is this has got some my glasses here. It's just imagine a piece of wood that's curved, and as they're finishing the concrete, they're finishing it this way and creating a curve in it. And if the brick paver is over here, then water is going to drain into that little swell. If it's new construction, it hasn't been done yet, that's what I would do. If that has not been done, then the other thing you can do is you can take out some of the pavers, maybe 1 or 2 rows, and then pour concrete for that swell right there. I try to avoid having water go down the pavers. Here's one thing to think about. If you're in a cold environment where it can be freezing, if water gets down into that pavers, although pavers last longer than concrete, over time they don't do well with freezing. They can buckle and do all their types of things. And if that foundation underneath the paver is not solid with at least 6 to 12 inches of road base with a little bit of sand on the top, and it's just straight clay and they put the pavers on that, that is going to crush. That is going to condensate. That's going to go down. And that's because all the water's puddling there. You want the water to puddle and drain on the solid surface. That's the only way I can answer that without seeing any pictures. So, next question. Kevin, welcome, Kevin. Trying to find a lot to build on in Clark County is difficult. If you know a realtor, it'll occur. I would call them. I'll let my wife respond to that one. She might know some people in Vegas, some resources in Vegas. Okay.
Okay, I just sent you a message in the chat. I do have some resources. I have realtor friends that are in Clark County. And for everybody, I have resources all over the country. So if you have a realtor, if you're in need of a realtor anywhere, I can hook you up. Just message us through howtobuildyourownhome.com. There's contact the instructor on there, and send us a message, and it goes to Keith, but he'll forward it to me, and then I'll have your info and get it to you. I'll put your name down and I'll look you up. But if you do that, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay. I got to show you something here. One of my subcontractors sent that to me. We just put in a 1,000-pound door and he got the drywall done. So it looks pretty cool. So those are the pictures I get all day long. Mike Sutton, if I manage my own build, what should I expect my square foot price to be to get the house weather tight? I live in northern Nevada. Yeah, you're going to deal with some colder climates up there in northern Nevada, especially if you're closer to the Sierras, which are there. Go to the First Steps course, third module in the First Steps course. It will help you determine that cost per square foot. Go through that once, twice, 3 times. It explains how. There's a video on to do that. It tells you how to find certain costs, how to exclude certain fees. Once you get it all done and you go through that entire formula, then it's going to tell you that cost per square foot. So go to the First Steps course. It's probably the best primer course out there for starting and for owner builders. And cost per square foot is their big issue. And that whole course will help you with that. And it's not that money. It's a very affordable course. How many are first times on here today? Yes. How many are first time home builders today? Bitter rocking. Okay. I have a concrete patio in my backyard. My living room is small. I wanted to build out. Can I build a frame on top of that concrete patio? Typically, yes, because it's non-structural. The walls that you put out there are non-supporting. They're not supporting anything else. However, here's the problem. If for some reason somebody takes out a wall in the future that is supporting, and they say, see, we can take this wall. We've got this other wall to support it. Now you're using that wall to support something that was never meant to it. So my recommendation is cut the concrete out, put in a footing properly, and then re-pour it. And then it won't be sloping. Otherwise, you're going to have to put your liquid applied self-leveling concrete on there, because all patios are poured to slope at 1/4 inch bubble away from the home for proper drainage away from the home. So you're either going to spend your money into self-leveling concrete to level off the ground, and on top of that, it's probably not the right level from the existing home anyway. So look at the cost there and say, okay, it's either that or I just bust this out, dig down 10 inches, 12 inches, and do a spread footing that could be 12 or 14 or 18 inches, and put it down there, pour it in there, put some rebar in there, and be done. And now it's supporting. But it's a matter of what you think could be an issue in the future. And the other thing is that now you're expanding the footprint of the home. That's typically a permitted requirement. Now, I'm not going to tell you need a permit, but if you want to resell the home, you need proof that you pulled a permit. You also need proof that it was recorded on the county to verify the additional square footage of the home. If you don't do that, then when you resell it and you say that it's this square footage, but the county records only say this square footage, then how do you reconcile that? And now trying to go backwards to verify the additional square footage with it all being done, permitting offices do not like that and they don't do it. So it's a matter of whether or not, if you're going to, this is your forever home, you don't care, I just want to expand it, I could use a little extra room for my wife sewing, whatever, then it's not a problem. But weigh all those variables. Just make sure you weigh all those variables before you decide. And I did a home, man, 14 years ago where they did it in it and they enclosed the porch like that. And that's exactly what we did. She wanted it verified. She wanted it on county records. Okay, we're going to pull a permit. We're going to make this a supporting structure. We dug out the concrete, did it right. It's a little more of a hassle, but sometimes the right thing to do is probably the right thing to do. So.
I miss Mike's. We didn't do this one, did we?
Mike says, if I manage my own bill, which, yeah, you did that one.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry.
Yassine, thanks for your insight. You're welcome. Follow up on, I just bought 10-acre land and building a den, 900 square feet for Airbnb and later building a house. Should I use the septic or create 2 septics? Thanks again. 2 septics is going to be costly and you might not be able to get it permitted because they're going to consider that a multifamily situation. I'd get it all in one permit. Now,
1 second.
and here's one of the issues that a lot of my students are facing. I try to get that Airbnb portion connected to the home. If it's detached, that's going to be a problem. Some places are really stickler on this. Other places are easing up on it. But here's what's funny. For the past 5, maybe 10 years, a separated ADU was constrained in size, how big you can actually make it. All right. And so that's why I'm worried. And a lot of places are easing up on that because it was such a stickler for people and not giving people freedom to do what they needed to do. But now they're backing off on it. But some places are still holding strong to that. Some permitting offices. So that's why I always say, connect it. I know you may want to detach something or other, but when you connect it, you eliminate the headache. All right, this is just an addition onto the home. This is not a separate dwelling. And as a result, it'll keep the septic and everything all as one. And they may need to know how many bedrooms are going to be in that house, in addition to the ADU, and the septic will have to be sized up for that whole thing anyway. So don't do 2 septics. You won't be permitted. They won't allow it. Concrete or plastic septic tanks. Plastic unless you're going to drive on it. However, I just ran into an issue. I'll share with you. I had it all planned out. We were going to put a septic in and it was going to be concrete so you can drive on it. And then the health department said no because it's not rated for a cement truck to drive over it. It's only rated for a car. So therefore we had to change the design of everything to accommodate that. We had to put the driveway in a completely different location. So you never know what a permitting office is going to say or a health department is going to say. You just never know. You can go to the manufacturer. Manufacturer says, yeah, it's rated for this. And the permitting office will say, well, it's not rated for that. Well, who on earth is going to have a cement truck back there? But lo and behold, sometime down in the future, if somebody wants a basketball court in the back of the yard and a cement truck drives back there, runs over the septic, it's not rated for that. So this is how permitting offices think. They think way down the line that it could happen. I could tell you story after story. Let's go to the next one. LDT Gaming, would the 795 course help with someone looking to learn how to build their own house as well as getting into real estate development or no? Yes, it's vital. It's be very powerful because it's going to show you where the real costs are. It's also going to show you where the real savings are and how you can actually save on land development, real estate development, all that. Just the budget and some of the downloads alone will streamline it so that when you've got a property you buy and you need to put together a budget, well, what do I need? What do I look for? Am I missing something out? And so it's all there, and it's a worthwhile lifelong investment because once you download all that stuff, you have access to it. I can't delete it from your computers. It's there. So it's invaluable. Plus it's a write-off of your business. So
We've had students say they learn more than their class.
I've had many GCs that went to college to learn how to construction manage, and they said that they learned more here than they did in college, 4 years of college. I could say a lot about that, but I won't. Camille, what kind of underlayment would you recommend under pre-finished solid hardwood over a crawl space, hot and humid southeast? Talk with your flooring installer and ask them what their recommendation. If it's a floating floor, then they're going to have a recommendation on what kind of underlayment you're going to put in there. Keep in mind, the thicker the floor, the easier it is to hide the imperfections in the framing. You'll see that framing might have a little bit of a hump here and there. You can sand those down, but the thicker the floor, the easier it is to hide that. Same thing with the underlayment. If the underlayment is a good underlayment, it can help to diminish those imperfections, or you just spend forever sanding them down. So talk with your flooring manufacturer local, and they'll tell you. JCTR, any tip on venting a vault ceiling? That's a really good question. If there's a second floor that's higher than that second floor will help vent that. If there's not a second floor, do you have any windows that are up there? The other thing to consider is if you're in a cold environment, then you're going to want to heat from the bottom of the floor, and it might be possible to put a return air up higher. Something to think about. That way you're really moving air through that whole system. And that might be one of the tricks, is just getting some air movement up there. Either as a return air or a register that's up there, but other registers can be down below. So it's moving the air up there. But yeah, I've seen some vaulted ceilings that are hot, 12, 14, 15 feet up. And you go up there hot, and especially if there's a landing or catwalk up there, and it's all vaulted around, it's hot in that particular area. Might be nice to put a transom window, maybe in a bathroom or somewhere. If you can find where there's a possible exit for air on a real hot day, that might be a beneficial thing. So, Josh, you mentioned going under the slab for slab on grade HVAC. Can you explain how that is better? If you have a home that's architecturally got a lot of open space and a lot of vaulted ceilings, and there's no way to run that anywhere through the truss system, then you might want to go underground if the soils and if the environment allow for it. However, if you do go underground, I recommend you do a complete full PVC system. This means that most underground HVAC systems are done very cheaply. They get these metal elbows and they connect them to PVC, and they put tape on those elbows, and they just fill up the holes with concrete. Meanwhile, over time, those elbows are galvanized, they rust in the ground. So you got air moving through dirt and concrete coming up through your home. Don't do that. You want complete 100% PVC system. If you can do that and your environment's great for it, then that's a plus. I've got one coming up, and I'll be doing some video on it. It'd be pretty cool. So try V. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. We have had GCs try and talk us out of building. They keep telling us that we will not be able to get subcontractors in Southern Utah. Is that true, or are they trying to scare us? They're trying to scare you. And you're in Southern Utah, reach out to me if you're interested in some consulting. I give you all my subcontractors. So that's the plus of, if you have a consultant here locally, you have access to all my subcontractors. In fact, most of my students that actually are in the program that actually are local, they just go for that. It was a quick slide in, and I've got 3 or 4 doing that right now locally. And I just give them access to my phone. And do you have someone for this? Yeah, here's a great contact. How about this? Yeah, mention my name, and they'll give them bids. So, Swan Lake Builds. Can you share your video views on vented attics versus unvented? Conditioned attics, seems like a lot of YouTubers are saying to make the house super tight. Reminder, I'm in hot, humid Florida. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I love venting attics. However, I just built a home where there was no attic. I'm building a mountain home where there's a complete upstairs with attic trusses, but there's no attic. But I'm putting aluminum shingle roofs on, which is a 30% reduction in utility costs, acts as a radiant barrier, and 9.5 to 10 months of the year, it's cold anyway up there. So I don't need to vent my attics. But if you have a large attic, I'm a big fan of venting attics. Down here, I build in all kinds of temperate zones. Where I'm living right now, it can get up to 114, 118 degrees on some nasty days. My attics, if they were not vented, they could get up to about 140, 150 degrees Fahrenheit, super hot. All that heat's putting pressure down on the fluffy stuff just below it, which is putting pressure on your ceiling. When you're in people's homes and you can go up to the ceiling, feel the ceiling on a hot day, and that tells you a lot about how poorly built that house is. My wife is a realtor. I go into homes with her and she asks me to investigate them. I go, let's go during a hot day. I usually like to go during a hot day, 3, 4 o'clock. And I go on the western wall. I did this with a home just up north. I felt it. That wall was super, super warm, which means that there's no insulation on the outside of that wall. So that means there's no ventilation. And so ventilating in very hot climates is a plus. Even in humid environments, all that air movement inside that attic, not a lot, but enough, is keeping it from building up damp moisture inside your attic. So the more you let that breathe, you can. But I love HVAC inside conditioned space. If you can make your attic conditioned space, which is really, really hard, I wouldn't use foam to do it. That's a possibility, but try to at least put your HVAC inside conditioned space. Okay. I'm sorry, we could talk forever on that. And every time I get that question, I go, okay, where do you live? What's your environment? Your environment says everything. If you had a bad soil, would you rather have a deep foundation or backfill with good soil? I love backfilling if I have to bring up the pad. If I have to take down the pad, I have to take out and then bring back, or I have to take out and recompact. If the geotech allows me to use what's called native soils. If I can use native soils and I have to over-X and recompact, fine. I just looked at a job with some clients yesterday. In fact, was it yesterday or it was a couple days ago? Here's a picture of it. And the whole parcel was, it was about 2 feet below the center of the road, which means that they'd have to grub all the organic matter off and then just bring in road base. Literally just bring it in and bring it up to where it needs to be and they're ready to rock and roll. That's a lot easier. It's a little more costly in some situations, but it's easier just to do that than to dig and recompact and have compaction tests every foot and then get that verified and then you can build. So it depends on how many feet you're dealing with. Next question.
Yeah, just tell everybody, oops, I'm gonna go back up here, sorry. Tell everybody the website. I put the link to the website in.
Okay.
I'm trying to find where we're at, sorry.
Yeah, she's putting a link to the website at howtobuildyourownhome.com if you're interested.
But it takes you away from the live, so you're gonna have to copy and paste.
Yeah, you have to copy and paste it because it will take you away from the live. And go there and get one of the courses. Again, if you do take the First Steps course, there's a coupon code at the end of that for a discount on the self-managed course. So it's all there. And I do offer 1-hour consulting. Believe it or not, we can go over a ton of information, questions up the wazoo. We can talk about your plans, your budget. We can talk about engineering. We can talk about land selection, whatever you want to talk about. And there's directions on that. You go to that, you download the direction, and the directions tell you what you need to do, and then we can schedule that. And I do those on Thursdays.
Here's a new question. I found.
Okay. Sham Haifar. Hello. We are currently building. How can I learn where I need to add extra insulation? For example, can I insulate more along the sill plate, or would that cause water drainage issues? It's going to have water drainage and airflow issues. Seal the outside of that bottom of the wall, the transition between the lumber and the concrete. Seal that part up. Don't try to seal up the bottom of that. you're just going to just use the seal, one layer of that foam, not multiple layers of insulation, and then seal the outside transition, and you're going to have your airflow stop, which is the weakest point in the home. It's right there at the bottom of the plate. Next question. We have time for one more question.
Trying to respond to everybody. Let me find out where I was. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
What is more expensive, plastic or concrete septic tank? Concrete's more money, so stay away from that. However, some permitting offices will require it for some weird reason. I don't know why, but plastic is fine. I just put a plastic one in on a job 4 days ago.
Here's an easy question.
Tarek Mohammed, in Virginia, does the island need to have power? Yes. Every island, basically in every permitting office that I've dealt with, requires power to be brought to the island, because you're going to have plugs or outlets or dishwasher or something to that island. You're going to want to have a mixer or a blender on that island. They don't want the cord to drape across. And typically in a kitchen, power has to be every 3 feet on a counter, and then of course inside the island. So your electrician, let them know, and they'll come and put that in before you pour your concrete. If it's not a slab on grade, they'll just run the power underneath in the framing structure.
Here's a good one.
I can't thank you enough for all you do. You're welcome. My kids know that Thursday night is Keith night, and Mom eats supper in the living room. Nobody can ask me questions until the live ends. Well, tell your kids thanks for letting you have a Keith night. So after this, my wife and I will have a night, and we'll maybe go out to dinner or something.
Yeah, just let us know if we need to go longer, if you want more time.
Yeah. Alan, I'm planning on the second floor omni block, but in my area near Jacksonville, Florida, I see many CMU builds that are 2 floors, will do stick on the second floor and don't continue with omni block. I want to show you something here that will blow your mind. And it's at How to Build Your Own Home. And if you go to How to Build Your Own Home and you go to courses, all right, and you scroll down, this will knock your socks off. There's a student of mine. He did a 2-story plus, almost 3-story omni block. Pretty crazy, huh? So it's really a matter of your structural mason and how comfortable they are, and also your structural engineer, if they're comfortable with doing that. So I know a lot of builders who wouldn't touch that, but I had an owner builder who touched it, and it was quite impressive. He had some massive deck that cantilevered out with metal beams. It's pretty impressive what he did. So you can go second floors. It just takes a little more complication and a little more planning and a lot more rebar and a little more engineering. So, okay. Dan Lee said, do you recommend ERV for super insulated homes in Rhode Island? If the permitting office and a lot of building science in the area really asks for it, then great. But Rhode Island's got some great weather as far as clean air outside versus like Los Angeles or even New York or Chicago. It depends upon what your air quality is outside that tells me if I need to have an ERV system. So really that's the deciding factor for me. I'm not that health conscious with it when it comes to that kind of stuff. However, some people are very issue driven with pollen and other stuff that's in the environment. So it's really what your personal needs are. It's really what your needs are. If you have a need for that and you really want it, then build it and design it for that place. So, RJ, do you use zip sheathing, and would you recommend it for walls and roof? No, I don't recommend it. Well, that's not true. I recommend it in the right environment. I don't do it because I build in a very arid environment. I mean, super arid, and I focus on the bottom ceiling of the house, not every transition from wood to product or whatever. So I could talk forever on that. I haven't seen the case for it. My only case that I would really like to maybe transition to a zip system is on the roof and sealing off the roof, especially during the course of construction. I'm building a mountain home. It would have been nice to put that on the roof because it took me 3 weeks to get it dried in, and I had like 6 rainstorms. And it almost did a number on a lot of the lumber underneath. So I called him an emergency. I says, I can't wait till next week. I need it done now. He was kind enough, came up, dried in the roof, and kept it from some damage. With the zip system, you put it up there with part of the framing structure. It's up there. You don't have to struggle with your roofer to get it dried in, and stressing about that. So if you have a lot of rain and you're building a mountain home like I am with a lot of rain, then it becomes an issue. But I did something else. Rather than the zip sheeting, I put a thicker OSB on. My roofers went up there and says, Gaz, what is your roof made on? It's solid as a rock. I put 5/8 up there. And because I have a 4 to 6 foot snow load that can handle on that roof, and I hate a spongy roof. When you walk on it, you can feel the weak spots. And so I put a little thicker roof on there for building the mountain. So I could have gone zip to solve for one problem, but I want more structural, and I want a thicker, meatier framing structure than I did a sealed up structure. And I just pushed to get it dried in faster. See the pros and cons you go after? And I may not have decided that in another environment, but my environment tells me everything. It tells me how to build and what to do and how to plan for it. So I like it how you guys ask me questions and you tell me where you are, because that helps a lot. All right. Do you teach to get a GC license? No, your state does. I can teach you how to manage a project, but I can't teach you how to get your GC. Every state has a different requirement. I think I have a download file in the download section that indicates what's required for every state, and I update that every once in a while. You can check that out. Just go to your state, a licensing, general contractor licensing, and then for your state, and it should take you to a .gov site. Don't go to some site trying to sell you a program. Make sure you go to a .gov site, and then that's going to give you all the requirements that you need, and go through that. And then the course I have will actually be heads and shoulders above just about anything you need, and it'll really help you with the process. Okay, we have room for one more question?
Yeah, we've got quite a few actually.
Okay, we'll
This is a quick one.
Okay, quick question. Just wondering if you know Mike Whistler at the Title Council in Las Vegas. I work for him. No, I don't. I don't know him. Okay. Thomas in Indiana. Love the channel. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. My brother and I own an exterior construction company in Indiana. We are gearing up to build houses in 2025. How comfortable are you with building in Indiana? I'm comfortable with that. I know the humidity in Indiana is pretty insane. So it's a process. It's not a scary thing at all. I've mentored students in every state in this country. Literally, I have Dakotas, North South Carolina, Maine, New England, Virginia, Ohio, you name it. I've mentored students, and I've dealt with a lot of weird permitting office issues. Tons of students in California, Oregon, Washington, and even Alaska and the UK, and some people in other parts of the world. So it's really about dialing in on your environment. And this is what Joe Seibert teaches in his books. He's the best building science professor, and he really teaches you how to build in your environment. And the more you know your environment, the better off you're going to be. I could go into a different environment. It would take me but just a couple months to learn it. But now that I've been talking with so many people, I'm pretty much dialed in. Okay. Clever Grill Leading. We purchased the land. We're getting an address. What is the next 3 steps, please? It's a loaded question. You pay off the land. Make sure you have other fees paid off. Water. Make sure you have septic approval. That you can get a septic there, but you can't get a septic designed until you have your house designed. So take the first steps course and then go through the self-managed course, because it answers all those questions, and it's going to help. It's going to line you out. It's going to give you all the checklists, the steps, how to get the budget started, how to find people, how to organize yourself. There's a lot there, but take those first steps course and then take the self-managed course. And I trust you. You're going to be thankful you did. Okay. Any other? We're here every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And again, just take those courses. And I do have the consulting 1 hour and the GC stuff as well. If you're interested in that, you're more than welcome to check in on those. But we'll be here next Thursday. See you then. Thanks, guys.